Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old Fourth Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
I'm going to start with some audio from a conversation that State Senator Elena Parent was having with Lena Kotler-Wallace, who is the parent of a trans child and a gender nonconforming child as well.
Is not ready for, despite me voting no against all these things all the time, transgender kids in sports. They are firmly, across the political spectrum, opposed to it. Prisoners are going to be even farther down the list. And if your party can get no public support, it will always lose. And I would like to see Democrats win so that we can stop all these bills that bully transgender people and instead treat them with the humanity and dignity and equality they deserve. But
so until you have gotten...
Can I please finish my sentence?
No, because I just want to... I have a question.
When Republicans can weaponize this issue successfully against Democrats all over the country so that we cannot win in districts where we must win in order to have a majority to stop their bullying.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this calmly because I just really want to be very, very clear on the language. So what you've said to me is that you are going to vote yes on SB 185 with your amendment because you feel that voting no would not allow Democrats to have enough power. Have I misstated that?
I'm saying that this issue has cost Democrats a ton of votes in areas we simply
I'm sorry. Could you just
ever be able to get a majority?
Sorry. Can you just explain which issue exactly is it?
The sports issue in particular.
So transgender people
and the prisoners, the sports and the prisoners. Yes.
So what is it about transgender prisoners that you don't feel?
It's not me, ma'am. It's where the public is, which is why I brought up the example about Barack Obama in 2008 to just make the point that if the public does not agree with you and you are an elected official, no matter how much we scream into the air, people aren't going to automatically believe our views and our approach. And if they will not believe our views and our approach, doubling down on it constantly is not going to help. We have to demonstrate something that we are a party that is worried about their concerns. And the unfortunate reality is, due to a couple factors, one of them being the weaponization by Republicans, clearly, but also some missteps by Democratic elected officials and activist groups, the public believes that Democrats writ large top priority is protecting transgender.
Is that not a top priority?
It is, but if you want to win elections, you need to have them think that the economy and helping families like them make ends meet is the top priority, because that is always the top priority for every single, every group is.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is bring in to the conversation Claire Schexnayder, founder and CEO of Oh Baby Fitness, a company that offers exercise classes for new and expectant moms. She's also an activist and community organizer. She caught my attention over the last day or so on Facebook with a post that came from the heart, and I think speaks to a lot of the consternation and exasperation that folks who believe in liberty and justice for all, right, are having with the posture, positioning, or even lack of positioning with the Democratic Party when it comes to the rights of trans individuals. Claire, thanks for joining me this morning. Your post, I thought, really summed up a lot of the frustration. You called out a lot of elected Democrats who are planning to or have voted for anti-trans measures at various times in the General Assembly session. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for allowing me to be here.
Tell me, why is this such a passionate issue for you?
I am the mother of a trans child, and absolutely have been in this and understand how much listening to your child can create a whole new world, new understanding, and new life for a person when they're able to be supported and lean into who they really are. And it's one of those things that I think that you don't understand it as much until you have a loved one or a friend. And I think for me, it's become everything. And my child has moved out of state and lives out of state, and because of this issue.
Oh wow, that's terrible. I want to say this from the start. I listened to that little bit of a conversation that State Senator Elena Parent had with the parent that we played before we brought you on. That's making the rounds on social media, and it's not like I don't understand what she's trying to say. I just don't think she's quite landing the plane on the right runway. Does that make sense to you?
I guess. I
I
thought that what she said in that there are some rights that prisoners don't have. That, when you go into prison, you lose a lot of rights. But, the Eighth Amendment says that you should, treat prisoners with,
right.
With they have rights. And I just don't see the point of a Democrat ever voting for
a limitation of rights
with the Republicans on an anti-trans issue.
Yeah.
If we can't stand for, and I know that it has been that the Republicans have created the narrative, own the narrative, are now erasing trans people. I mean, they took the TQ out of LGBTQ. They have made it okay to surveil people based on their gender and sexual orientation.
Mm-hmm.
They are erasing these children and adults, and that has always been their intent, backed by the religious right. And that a Democrat would enter into on it's unnecessary to die on that hill. Unnecessary. And she's a lawyer. And she's an elected official, and she wants to run for governor. So she's decided that she's going to show that she can go both ways on the trans issue, pun intended.
Yeah.
And it's not okay.
Yeah. No, I 1,000% understand where you're coming from. I meant just from a political perspective. I believe that what she was saying out loud is sometimes the quiet part that a lot of establishment Democrats say behind closed doors, in that they understand when an issue is an unpopular issue, that they will sometimes either stay quiet, not participate in the conversation, or in this case, a vote, or be on the wrong side and feel like it's going to cost them electorally. She is in a really safe district. She would face almost no reprisal if she were to stick to her principles, her espoused principles anyway, and voted against anti-trans measures in lockstep. However, as you allude to, and I've said this before, I've had her on my show a couple of times. I came away both conversations really liking her and feeling a gubernatorial vibe from her. I have said before, I really like the cut of her jib. I feel like she would be a strong gubernatorial candidate.
She's brilliant, and she's always been an advocate for the trans community, and all the issues. I feel like she has done a great job.
Yeah.
I just don't get this, and especially truly, Rob, where we are right now in history. I don't think you've got 2 years to figure out what the election, that there's going to be an election in 2 years necessarily. I think if you look at Trump aligning with Putin and all the Republicans, no matter in the House or the Senate or wherever in the states, are all aligning themselves with Trump because they've been promised that they probably won't have to run again. I mean, if you look at it through the lens of that, we as Democrats have to start thinking in the here and now, how are we going to save rights and save democracy and save our country here and now? And I don't see a whole lot of people doing that.
Yeah.
And I definitely think this was, she just thought that she would be able to have this on her record so that when she wants to run for governor, that she can say, well, I voted on this. That's not genuine, and that's not fair, and that's not helpful. And again, we don't need Democrats who are going to vote like Republicans, especially on this issue. We just don't need it. Go be a Republican.
What bothers me, and I don't think she obviously doesn't want to be a Republican, because on again, most issues she is in lockstep with the Democratic
She's fine,
Party.
but it's just giving it away.
Yeah.
And I just think that I draw a line.
Yeah,
there.
I understand your frustration.
And I wanted to call her out. And I think it's fair to call her out. And she said it on tape.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part, because it lives forever in infamy, and may dog her. Do you listen to? And I remember when the trans prisoner commercial was airing during the presidential campaign. Did you sit there every time you'd see that pop up on television? I don't know if you did or not, because it aired a lot during sporting events, and I don't know if you watched them, but it was obvious that sort of attack ad was aimed at male voters, and it definitely, I think, affected male voters. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put so much.
And the Harris campaign did not respond to it,
not a word
at all.
And again, you're talking about a former attorney general, someone who has a law background, not unlike Senator Parent, who could say, just from a legal perspective, that's the Constitution. You can't undo the Constitution. And not only that, why would you attack Kamala Harris for something that President Donald Trump allowed from 2017 through 2021
That's right,
as well?
Exactly. And they could have said all of those things and didn't. And we can all see, I knew during the election, I worked for the Harris campaign, that it was a huge problem. And I heard it in communities and at the doors and people I was talking to. And I think that another thing here in Georgia is I heard from Black Christian voters that they felt like the Democratic Party needed to pass the mic, and that they were not given space to be Democrats and to say why they were Democrats, and that they didn't truck with abortion, they didn't truck with the trans issues, but because they were Christians, they were liberal and wanted to take care of everyone, and it was their job to do that. And if they had passed the mic to Black Christians and allowed them to say that, I think it could have done a lot on this issue and others. But I just think that we're so busy trying to make a soundbite or be seen in a certain way that we don't actually listen to people and pass the mic. Democrats are a varied bunch. You're a big tent, and we do turn
hard
on our own.
Yeah, I was going to say it's hard to herd all the cats in the same direction sometimes.
It is, but I think that if you were to listen and if you were to be authentic, and then that's again another word that is used with transgender people a lot, is if you're authentic. There's nothing to be afraid of if you're authentic. And if you can help people understand why they're going to vote no, and that I'm always going to vote no on these issues, because this is who this party is, and this is who I am, and this is what I believe. And there's a lot of ways that I can get to that. There's no listening anymore. And the Democratic Party doesn't know what their message is.
Yeah, they do
and
seem to be on the defensive. And on the defensive on issues that they have, again, facts and math and data and science and logic at their back if they would just use it.
Right, and she's a leader. Elena Parent is a leader. She is brilliant, and she has always been an advocate for this community. But it's her job to explain why she's voting no.
Yeah.
And to make it clear to her constituents why. And it's based on legal, it's based on the Constitution.
Yeah, right. No, 1,000%.
And if that's the case,
this is
take
it. Yeah, this is a frustrating thing for someone like me who has been a Democrat since college, since 1992, as a 51-year-old gay man who waited and waited and waited and waited and waited and waited and waited for the party that said that they had my back to finally grow a pair and, step up. And we had to quietly go about with marriage equality. It had to be backdoor whispered by Joe Biden, the vice president at the time, for the president at the time, Barack Obama, to say, yeah, okay, I'm for it. When we knew all along he was actually for it if he'd had just had the spine to say so from the jump. That's the thing that bothers me.
Exactly. And we should never not advocate for people who are really trying to be erased.
Yep.
And he doesn't want them. Trump does not want these people to exist. And it's really hard to sit in the Georgia state capitol and listen to Republicans saying they have a mandate and that they are not going to spend any money on this issue, on state employees who have worked for the state for 30 years and have already transitioned and are doing good jobs, getting good reviews. They don't get the health insurance coverage anymore from their state healthcare plan for hormones or whatever they need for health, for basic health care. They just are like, no, we don't want to spend our money on that. And they're just, and it's happening. There's a raft of bills.
Yeah.
This isn't just,
yeah.
And so when anybody votes yes, it's a problem. A Democrat votes yes.
And my issue is, I can understand wanting to have a conversation about gender participation, sports, et cetera, but what we don't do is we just create more problems. We create exclusions instead of other ways to provide inclusion. I play in a softball league that is LGBTQ plus. We also let straight people play in it, by the way. But we play co-education, co-ed. We play, it doesn't matter your gender. We all play. It's all a matter of skill at that point. Like, we find solutions for these problems, and I don't understand why we can't find solutions that offer inclusion instead of completely finding other ways to exclude. That's the thing that really
because we're arguing. We've taken their argument, their narrative, and we're using their words. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the Decatur-ish article, but it is a transcript of the whole conversation, and Elena keeps getting caught up on using GOP terminology to say that we don't want boys playing in girls' sports. And, and then, or do you want us assigned at birth? What should I be saying? She kept just spouting Republican talking points. And you can't do that. You have to reframe the argument, and you have to come in with what you believe, authentically believe.
This is again one of those situations where the one horse has left the barn and we're still putting boots on ours, and it's
you've got a lot of good ones today, Rob, but they're all perfectly on point, on target.
So today we have over a dozen LGBTQ plus organizations heading to the Georgia State Capitol for Pride at the Capitol. I know you're among them, so I'm going to let you get on with your day. But I wanted to start with this conversation because it is completely disheartening as someone who is left of center, a progressive, a liberal, someone who, like yourself, has raised a trans child, to listen to our allies use language that shows us that maybe they don't have our back the way we thought they did. And maybe in that case, they shouldn't have our full support either.
We just have to call people out. Yeah. I have to be authentic.
Yeah.
No. I'm not going to give on this one. And if they're willing to give on this, what else are they going to give on?
No, you're right. And I'm a fan of Elena Parent. I thought she's gubernatorial material, and I'm not willing to throw out the baby with the bathwater here. I'm hoping that maybe she can be conversed with and brought back to being on the right side of this issue. And so I wish you guys all the luck in doing that today.
Thanks.
That is Claire Snyder, founder CEO of Oh Baby Fitness, offering exercise classes for new and expectant moms, also an activist and community organizer, also mother of a trans child who left the state of Georgia to find true happiness in their authenticity somewhere else. That's heartbreaking. Claire, thank you.
Anytime.
I do want to spend just another 60 seconds or so giving some thoughts on Senator Elena Parent and her positioning and maybe pre-positioning for her gubernatorial race with this issue. when the Ron Show returns on America One Radio and Progressive Voices via TuneIn. You ever feel like dialing into the show or leaving us a little voice note? Feel free, by the way. The number's 404-919-2725. You're just going to get a generic voicemail greeting because I'm in real estate and I don't know who's calling me sometimes. And unknown calls go right to that. So just leave me a voicemail and I'll air your grievance. Or if you'd like to come on the show or you just want to leave a comment, feel free. 404-919-2725. I only have about 30 seconds, but I do want to, again, reiterate. I'm a fan of Elena Parent. I am a proponent for her running for that higher state-level constitutional office. And I think this could be an opportunity for her to actually strengthen her bona fides and learn from this on how to better craft the messaging ahead of a gubernatorial race, because she's going to get attacked for her trans and LGBTQ plus support in the past. And yes, there's been plenty of that. I've invited her on the show, by the way. She's welcome to come on and discuss this issue if she'd like. This is The Ron Show on America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn.
Broadcasting 5 days a week to make common sense common again. This is The Ron Show on America One Radio.
So earlier you heard me discussing Georgia's Senate Democrats, House Democrats too, there are some on that list, that are having a hard time wrapping their verbiage around support for the full LGBTQ plus community, for the individual personal liberties and rights for all Americans. I talk to Republicans and MAGAs and conservatives all the time about not learning from our own nation's history, in their case trying to suppress it as much as possible. But Democrats could stand to learn a little bit of history too. The very same weak-spined posturing that Democrats are taking towards supporting the trans community right now. Again, I'm a 51-year-old gay man. I can remember when it was hard to find enough Democrats to stand up for the rights of the lesbian, gay, and bisexual community. Again, President Barack Obama. We all think so eloquently of President Barack Obama. By the way, where the hell is he? I'll get to that in a minute. President Barack Obama and his presidency, we think so glowingly of that history. And yet, when President Barack Obama was elected, he wasn't for gay marriage. He had some other terminology for it. A lot of Democrats did. Well, we need to find some other way to say it other than marriage. Whatever. Why aren't you just standing up for what we all know you believe in? You know, don't show up to fundraisers with the Human Rights Coalition, Lambda Legal or whatever, and glad hand us and then tell us, well, you know, we got to figure something out. No, you need to enunciate better. You need to espouse your values, our founding fathers' values. Speaking of enunciating, yeah, Senator Elena Parent really fumbled around on this in a conversation she had with a trans parent. Here's the stuff that really kind of made me go, ooh, cringe.
It's not me, ma'am. It's where the public is, which is why I brought up the example about Barack Obama in 2008 to just make the point that
good example. If
the public does not agree with you and you are an elected official, no matter how much we scream into the air, people aren't going to automatically believe our views and our approach. And if they will not believe our views and our approach, doubling down on it constantly is not going to help. We have to demonstrate something that we are a party that is worried about their concerns. And the unfortunate reality is, due to a couple factors, one of them being the weaponization by Republicans, clearly, but also some missteps by Democratic elected officials and activist groups, the public believes that Democrats writ large top priority is protecting transgender.
I'm going to step in here because I think what Senator Elena Parent is trying to say, and I'm not like the Senate whisperer here, I think what she's trying to say is, and she's not wrong, that there has been this mischaracterization that all the Democratic Party is about is biological men playing in women's sports or biological men in women's dressing rooms or locker rooms, blah, 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 blah. Actually, the only biological man that brags about going into changing rooms is the current president of the United States, who owned beauty pageants and bragged about going into those changing rooms where women were in various stages of undress. Never mind all the other stuff that he bragged about on the hot mic. But Senator Parent's not wrong, that there has been that mischaracterization, that this demonization of the trans community has sprouted wings and given this mischaracterization. But again, this is more about Democrats being on their heels, being on the defensive instead of being on the offensive. This is about basic civil and human rights, okay? What did Tim Walz say when he was entering the fray in the 2024 cycle? It's none of your damn business. It is. It's none of your damn business. If someone has, right now in the state of Georgia, they're fighting for the opportunity to at least protect the rights of state employees who have paid for their health insurance or paid into their health insurance or earned the state's paying into their health insurance, to dictate now what the health insurance will cover when it has covered in the past gender-affirming care for any state employee who might be transitioning. Again, whose business is it what the health care coverage covers? What if, for example, a state employee decided, I'm going to go to Bike Week in Myrtle Beach Memorial Day weekend, or during the month of May, Harley Bike Week, and in South Carolina, they don't have a helmet law. Well, what if that state employee got into a motorcycle accident in South Carolina, not wearing a helmet, and suffered some severe head injuries? Is the state health insurance going to cover that? Or do we have some law now that says because that person made a life choice, a lifestyle choice, we're not going to cover that? No, because again, we've decided that's none of our damn business. So why is it the business of some state employee who either is a trans individual or has a trans child on that insurance? Why is it the state's business all of a sudden to dictate what that insurance is or isn't going to cover? This isn't that difficult a concept to explain.
Is that not a top priority?
It is, but if you want to win elections, you need to have them think that the economy and helping families like them make ends meet is the top priority, because that is always the top priority for every single, every group.
That's right, you do. That is not the fault of the trans community, though. They don't have to take one on the chin, take one for the team, because the Democratic Party hasn't done a good enough job at making that messaging loud and clear. So why are you asking them to make that sacrifice, to take that knee? You shouldn't. And again, I'm a fan of Elena Parent, state senator. I do. I think the world of her, and I know she's been very pro-LGBTQ plus for quite a while. She has a strong record to this point on gay, bisexual, and trans rights issues. And today, again, Pride at the Capitol. Hopefully someone will be able to sit with her and talk with her about messaging, because that's important too. But we can walk and chew gum. We can talk about family issues and the economy and common defense, and also stand up for individual liberties, personal freedoms, human rights, personal rights at the same time. This isn't just a state of Georgia problem. Georgia's a purpley red state, getting more purple by the minute, but still a purpley red state and gerrymandered to hell. So Senator Elena Parent and Harold Jones and Kim Jackson and Jason Estevez, we've had all of these who've been on the show before, and other elected state level Democrats are all outnumbered, thanks in large part to gerrymandering. It's not even close. And I would argue, instead of backtracking and waffling on your values, maybe work on some Republicans across the aisle who you may not even know have a trans relative or neighbor or friend, a gay, bisexual, lesbian daughter, granddaughter, grandson, son. You just never know. Start speaking passionately about these values from a place of earnestness, and who knows who you might win over. Vice President Dick Cheney with the lesbian daughter had a softened tone on gay rights issues. Former First Lady Nancy Reagan, whose husband Ronald famously had Alzheimer's, she softened the GOP tone on stem cell research because it personally affected them. There's going to be that opportunity. Democrats instead spend way too much time backtracking in reaction instead of realizing that the fertile growth opportunity ground when it comes to new voters is the reliable voting base that's been there at their side all this time, waiting to be acknowledged. And instead of being acknowledged, they've been rebuffed and mocked and ridiculed. I'm talking, of course, about progressives. And damn it, if Democrats aren't conspiring to do the same thing. Julia Ornato at the Daily Beast reporting on this over the weekend. Democrats are unveiling a new plan to beat MAGA. More gun shows, less AOC. Well, that headline definitely caught my attention. Reporting goes, Democrats spent 1.5 days cooking up a game plan for a comeback after a devastating loss against President Donald Trump last November. And it includes moving away from left-wing figures like Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the small dollar donors. That's you and me, by the way. Hang on. That fueled their rise to the national stage. They're going to go back to big dollar donors and centrism. Okay. A large group of Democrats, consultants, campaign staffers, elected officials, and party leaders gathered in Loudoun County, Virginia for a brief retreat in early February to identify the party's weaknesses and chart a path forward, according to Politico. The gathering was organized by centrist Democrat think tank Third Way. Matt Bennett, the organization's executive vice president for public affairs, I paused because I just pictured what he looked like, told Politico that after November, it became, quote, so evident that the things that the left was doing and saying deeply hurt Harris and down-ballot Democrats. No, Matt, what hurt Harris and down-ballot Democrats was utter silence on stupid attack ads that should have been answered with simple, it's in the Constitution. President Trump had to adhere to it too. Those people deserve rights just like everybody else. Next. A lot of people are looking to us, not just Third Way, but the moderates in the party and saying, we got to do it your way because the other way ain't working, he said. I'm sorry, did I miss the progressive revolution that overtook the Democratic Party? That progressive stalwart, Joe Biden, won the nomination because progressives overtook the primary system? I'm trying to remember that progressive that Hillary Clinton sought to be her running mate after a close, tightly fought primary in 2016 where it's pretty obvious the DNC had its finger on the scales. I'm trying to remember. When did that happen? It didn't. You keep rebuffing progressives. And progressives keep drip by drip leaving you. I keep going back to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was a Bernie guy. How did you lose Joe Rogan? You're wondering how you get back the male voter, and at the same time, I'm looking at Joe Rogan. I'm going, he's a male, he's a voter, he influences a lot of male voters, used to be a Bernie guy, and we rebuffed him in 2016. We may not have lost him right then and there, but over time you did. More from the Daily Beast piece. The group emerged from the February retreat with a 5-page list of takeaways centered around Democrats' disconnect from the working class over cultural and economic issues and what the party can do next to fix it. The statements below are not necessarily endorsed by all those attending the comeback retreat, the document states, and as agreed to, are not attributed to any individual who participated. The biggest themes included moving away from the left wing of the party and toward a thoughtful form of populism. The thoughtful form of populism is to be populist. Like Bernie Sanders is a populist, y'all. Bernie Sanders was the 2016 left-wing version of populism that Donald Trump rode to power on the right side of the arc, as well as embracing capitalism in a more explicit way. The group blamed the party's disconnect with the working class partly on progressive figures, left-wing staffers, and activist groups. Man, you can't make this stuff up. Activist groups and progressive staffers push unpopular cultural positions, making it seem like Democrats are more extreme than they actually are. Boy, this sounds like Elena Parent, doesn't it? They said, stressing the need to reject fringe positions that alienate the median voter. The proposed solution to the party's perceived far-left problem was to build up the moderate Democratic base through media, talent pipelines, and communications networks, pushing back against staffers and groups that, quote, exert a disproportionate influence on policy and messaging, and banning far-left candidate questionnaires and refuse to participate in forums that create ideological purity tests. The document also advocated for embracing populism, quote, thoughtfully, by critiquing corporate excess and corruption, but, quote, avoiding an anti-capitalist stance. Democrats need to stop demonizing wealth and corporations broadly, it read, urging the party to, quote, be pro-aspiration and pro-capitalism in a smart way. Oh, but wait, there's more. At the same time, the summary recommended getting, quote, out of elite circles and into real communities. Like tailgates, gun shows, local restaurants and churches as part of a bid to spotlight working class voices. Gun shows? Democratic economic messages often come from elites, celebrities, and politicians, rather than working class voices that voters can relate to, the document read. You know what? I don't disagree with that. While simultaneously urging the party to, quote, move away from the dominance of small dollar donors whose preferences may not align with the broader electorate. You are not making sense with yourself. You can't sit here and talk about getting away from elites and celebrities and big-time donors while also saying we got to move away from the dominance of small dollar donors whose preferences may not align with the broader electorate. You are arguing with yourself, third way. Again, this is a flank of the Democratic Party admitting that they just suck at messaging, showing that they suck at messaging. Ooh, a 5-page dictate from a day and a half. That's all you came up with was 5 pages of bullet points, and it's got to be attack the left flank, the folks that would vote for us. We've got to start wooing Reagan. Again, Reagan Democrats, they're gone. They're not Reagan Democrats. They're Republicans, and you're never going to win them back. But you're going to keep on trying. Boy, you just keep trying to ask that girl out, and she keeps telling you, I ain't into you. Meanwhile, the really nice, pretty girl on the left side, she'd go out with you in a minute if you'd just ask her out. She would have your kids. She would help you raise a family. Fill a house with love. And you keep looking at that lady who has no interest in you whatsoever, who keeps walking further and further away from you with that douchebag on her arm. When are you going to learn? I'm worried you're not. To talk about progressives of this as if they're anti-capitalistic is absolute bullshit. I don't believe that the Consumer Protection Financial Bureau, Elizabeth Warren, progressive, I don't think that was ever anti-capitalist. It was pro-working class. It was pro-person. It was pro-individual rights. I'm sorry. What's wrong with that? Again, this goes right back to Democrats' messaging and espousing itself as a defender of personal freedoms and liberties. But now we're going to try and speak more rah-rah capitalistic. We don't need a diet Republican Party. The diet Republicans that aren't MAGA can go form that themselves. What we need is a Democratic Party that, I don't know, reads its party platform and here's an idea, sticks to it, stands up for it, espouses it like it means it. All right, I just had to end with this story because this is some really dumb shit. This from WXIA TV 11 Live.
New tonight at 6, Georgia's Fort Moore has been renamed Fort Benning. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth signing the memorandum today, but it's not exactly back to the previous name as it was before. The name for the Army training site changed to Fort Moore in 2023. It was part of a broader effort by the U.S. military to confront racial injustice. The installation was originally named for Henry L. Benning, a Confederate general during the Civil War.
Right.
But because of a federal law that passed in 2021, the Trump administration and its officials cannot just change the name back. The law bans the naming of military bases after Confederate generals.
That's right.
So instead, Fort Benning is now named after Fred Benning, a corporal who was awarded a Distinguished Service Cross in World War I. The administration recently used a similar tactic to rename Fort Liberty in North Carolina Fort Bragg again.
I love that she called it a tactic too, by the way, because that's absolutely what it is. It's just a panderous tactic. Oh, and by the way, not very doji, not very efficient at all. That's what the E in Doge stands for, right? Efficiency. Where's the efficiency in that? Actually, where's the honor? Quick, find me somebody whose last name is Benning. Need to own the libs. All while dishonoring someone who trained and is buried there. Now that is peak MAGA. Pay attention. The Pentagon isn't changing Fort Benning back to being named for the Confederate general and ardent racist. They're just undoing that it was named to honor an Army veteran who trained and is buried there for someone coincidentally bearing the last name Benning, all to score cheap MAGA points. The whole support the troops tribe cheers this At the expense of Hal and Julie Moore, their names had been emblazoned on the base in 2023 with unquestionable bona fides backing the honor, when this and 7 other bases had treasonous Confederate names forever wiped off them. The Pentagon statement, by the way, included this unironic quote. Secretary Hegseth's directive honors the warrior ethos and recognizes the heroes who have trained at the installation for decades. What it actually is a slap at the distinguished individuals the base had been named for. Moore actually trained at the base that bore his name. He's buried there. Corporal Fred G. Benning has no known ties to the base, the area, the state that I can find. Hal and Julie Moore's son, Steve, has been outspoken about this tactic. Thank you for that term, by the way. Those who advocate for changing the name to honor a person solely because they happen to be named Benning ignore the values and character of Hal and Julie Moore, as well as their courage, competency, and dedication to the nation and Army families. Similarly, Fort Bragg in North Carolina was named Fort Liberty in 2023. Secretary Hegseth found somebody else who had the last name Bragg other than a Confederate general because, again, there's a law now that prohibits them from naming military installations after Confederate generals. Notice they're not seeking to undo that legislation. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them, but right now they're not doing that. And maybe the folks that they're using these names for are just placeholders until they can get that legislation passed. But Private First Class Bragg, whose name now is affixed to Fort Bragg, has the distinction. We'll see how long. Yeah, this is silly, petty, not doji bullshit. And again, Fort Liberty, it's not like that was named after anyone. That's fine. But when you take the names of Hal and Julie Moore off the military base outside Columbus, Georgia, you are dishonoring Hal's service, Julie's dedication, by the way. Her story is quite something. She worked as a military spouse to update, to personalize the way military families, widows, were informed of their beloved soldiers passing, instead of just getting a cold, callous telegram on a piece of paper handed to them or mailed to them. And to the doginess of it. I mean, how is this efficient? We just spent however many millions of dollars for these 8 military installation renames to take Confederate heroes' names off of Union bases. I mean, if we're going to go that far back, that's what they are, right? They're United States military bases, not Confederates. United States, not treason. To take Confederate names off of military bases. We spent millions of dollars in 2023. Only now to undo all of that and spend millions of dollars to put names back. I mean, are we at least going to recycle the lettering from the old names? Did we put those in a storage unit somewhere off the base or on the base so that at least we save that modicum of money? I mean, where is Doge on this? Again, Doge is silent. And what really sucks is, like, it's the military. We have plenty of shit to name after people. To do this tap dance just to find some person who happens to have the same name as a former Confederate general who used to be on the welcome sign at a military base. Ugh. This is just pettiness at such a MAGA-rific level and does such a dishonor and disservice and waste of taxpayer dollars. I swear I hear former Republican Governor Bobby Jindal in my head. This is a stupid party right here. It's going to do it for today's Ron Show. Back tomorrow, 9 a.m., 5 p.m. on America One Radio, 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. Show notes at RonShowATL.com. Have a good day.